What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of DK Metcalf's best route running from the 2023 NFL season so far. I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things, but also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver and would like to train with us this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below. We are coming out to 15 different cities across the country for two-day long QB and wide receiver camps. Next up, we are coming out to San Francisco, then Miami, Las Vegas, Charlotte, Portland, Dallas, Nashville, Chicago, Buffalo, Atlanta, Houston, Philly, Detroit, Boise, and Los Angeles. So, fellas, if you're local to any one of these 15 cities or would like to travel out and work with us, check out that very first link in the description below. It's where you can get all the information. Again, very first link in that description below. Let's get started with this video. So, DK Metcalf's route running has improved a ton just in the past year from the 2022 season to the 2023 season. So, we're going to be breaking down some of those things that he has worked on and some of the best routes so far. So this first example here is from, I believe, week 1. Seahawks playing the Rams, and he gets this DB2 bite on this great crossover move on a fade. So anytime that we are working a crossover move, and it's against man-to-man coverage, we have to understand one thing. This DB is supposed to be watching what? He is supposed to be watching my hips and reading my body language, right? So we talk a lot about, selling vertical on this channel. Like, let's say you're running a comeback route, and the breaks at 15. All the way up till 15, you guys are trying to sell like you were running a fade. Being a wide receiver is a big thing about being a salesman, right? Being a salesman makes you a good wide receiver. So till 15, you're trying to sell the go. If you're using a crossover move, we are trying to sell like we are running a slant route. I saw a lot of people calling this a sluggo route. This is not a sluggo route. A sluggo is a slant and go, but that's just a testament to how much Metcalf actually sold this thing with his upper half. So when he goes to throw this crossover move, you see how he gives his plant. A crossover fake, fellas, is essentially like a double up, right? Or a double move, if you will. It's a 1-2, right? So a lot of people call it a rocker step when you do it at the top of the break. This is just like a crossover like you're playing basketball. You want to step in the direction that you are going first. Now, when you take that step in the direction you're going first, you are not trying to reach super far. You are not trying to over-exaggerate this step. That step is about being solid, planting hard, and shooting your cleat into the grass. So when you take that solid step, guess what you do off of it now? You push. It's a quick step. You created some energy, and you push into the second step of the crossover. Now, you see how his belly button is turned to the inside. That is the exact terminology I tell my wide receivers to think about when they're selling their routes. You want to try to turn your belly button in the direction opposite of where you're going. So we're going to the outside. You want to turn your belly button to the inside. You want your hips and your shoulders to be separate from your lower body. Because you see how when he makes this crossover move, yeah, his hips are going, yeah, he's selling with the upper body, but you see how his toes stay forward. That is an explosive position to be able to get out of the break. Because not only do I want to be able to sell the break, but I also want to have some explosion and get out and push and drive. So the mistake a lot of receivers will make is on this crossover move, a rocker step move. They take this quick first step, but when they do the second step, their toe is completely pointed to the inside. Their hip is pointed to the inside. You can't push back to the outside on that, whether you're running an out route, whether you're running a corner route, or whether you're running this fade route. So we got to be able to sell with that upper half, but also maintain explosive position. They call it a positive shin angle. That essentially means that you want your shin to be at a 45 degree. So we sold it, but now I could push out, get some explosion, and separate from the DB. That is a textbook move there from DK Metcalf. We're going to play this thing full speed one more time. Great job utilizing that crossover fake, selling with the upper half, and then winning on that fade ball. Great route. So now, next example here we're going to be looking at from Metcalf is a route where he is running a 10 to 12 yard dig versus inside shade press coverage. So when you get inside shade press coverage, we want to be able to understand a couple of things, right? And this is what makes a great route runner, in my opinion. I think you got to be able to have the physical traits, right? You got to be able to run your routes, get into your breaks, sell, moves like that crossover move. You got to have the physical things. But if you don't know when to actually apply those physical traits, those techniques that you picked up in the offseason, whatever, it's all for nothing. So you have to have a combination of skill, but also football IQ. And this is one of the highest football IQ plays that I've seen DK Metcalf do. So he's got this inside shade DB, attacks him inside, and he takes an outside release on an inside breaking route. Now, a lot of receiver coaches will say, don't ever do that. You have an inside breaking route, take the inside release no matter what. That is completely wrong, fellas, and we're going to talk about why. And so we go back to the beginning. It all starts with having a pre-snap process as a wide receiver. You got to be looking at two specific things on a DB. You want to be looking for his leverage. So his leverage essentially means where he is lined up, like where he's shaded, right? So if the middle of his stance is even with the wide receiver's front foot and his like inside foot is slightly outside, that means he's got inside leverage. If he were to be shaded here, and let's say the middle of his body was even with Metcalf's back foot and his outside foot was outside of him, that means he has outside leverage, right? So you got inside and you got outside. So his leverage tells us what his goals are with his type of coverage. So if he's lined up inside leverage, his goal is to prevent the inside route. He wants to make it hard on Metcalf. He doesn't want Metcalf to be able to just take one step and then run to the inside because he's going to run right into coverage. And a DB's entire goal in press coverage is to get hands-on and disrupt the timing. That is the goal. Get hands, disrupt the timing with the quarterback. Because if you could do that, you did your job. So a lot of receiver coaches will say, oh, give him a quick fake to the outside, then take the inside release. Guys, this guy is going to do something called keeping his leverage. He is going to move to the inside, and he is going to get hands on us, which can disrupt spacing and timing on the play. Like, let's think about this. Let's say Metcalf's here, and he's got to run a dig, and let's say the slot receiver also has to run a dig. Let's say you got a DB who's inside shade and you force the release. He gets hands and he reroutes us to the inside and you're running your dig right on top of the slot. That's horrible spacing. You have to be able to keep spacing and timing with your press release. And that's where that football IQ comes into play, like we said. And this is, again, a high football IQ player for Metcalf. So he attacks his DB inside. He gets him to move. You see how much this DB moves? Because remember, his responsibility is what? Protect the inside. Don't give up the inside. So when you have that inside shade guy, remember, we're looking for his leverage, but also the distance. So you see how he's inside shade. Metcalf doesn't just give him a quick jab. He runs at him. He attacks him. They call this a dive release, but he's closing the space with him, right? He's eating up any type of space that this DB has with him. So when he eats up that space and he makes a move to cut back to the outside, it's easy for him to do something called getting skinny. So getting skinny is like your attempt at restacking. Restacking is where you have this DB trailing our back hip and we're pretty much running over the top of him. I cannot get to this position if I don't close the distance or the DB. So we go back to the first example or the first part of this. Let's say Metcalf just gave a quick jab, DB jumped. He's still got to get to 10 yards, and there's still about a 1.5 yard gap of space between the two of you. So he's able to just cut you off to 10, and you end up running that dig right into him. This is why so many coaches can't teach the outside release with the inside shade press because they don't have this kind of knowledge. They don't know that if I close the space with him, give him a move, attack his leverage, I'm in a position to take that outside release. And it's faster, and you're not getting jammed, so you're keeping timing. So that's why he does this. That's why he closes the space, because you see how easy it is, especially for a big, strong guy like Metcalf, especially if you're a bigger receiver watching this. You got your size to your advantage. Let's be physical. Let's close the distance, and let's initiate the contact. Let's swat those hands, because he's trying to take an outside release. Only hand that's going to prevent that is this DB's outside hand. So if I close space, I attack him, and I go to the outside, let's have a plan to fight that outside hand and go. And now Metcalf's over the top. We got him stacked, and what could he do? He uses that great crossover move of his where his belly button is to the sideline, hips, shoulders, his toes staying forward. DB jumps, and look at all the space he has. Now he's got a throwing window. Now he could run out of the break and meet the spot where the quarterback expects him to be at, not get rerouted way to the inside. So like we said, fellas, route running is a combination of having the skills. You got to be able to work on these releases. You got to be able to work on that crossover move, but you also got to know when to do it. And if you don't know when to do it, you're never going to do it. You're just going to go out there, you're going to have a blank stare and just run around, and that's what we don't want as a receiver. Okay, so now we're looking at this router from Metcalf against this like kind of zone coverage DB who's bailing out of there, probably like cover 3 or cover 4, and he's going to be running a stutter stop route, right? So a stutter stop is essentially where you're trying to make it look like a stutter go, right? And this is something that I think a lot of offenses scheme. They, when it comes down to double moves, is they'll run the stop route over and over again, they'll run the stutter go again, and then they try to combine the two of them, right? So it's something that as a receiver, you can't just go through the motions. You actually have to try to change direction, try to make this DB think that you are decelerating and reaccelerating. And that's what Metcalf does a great job of. So he comes up here, decelerates, accelerates again, then puts the brakes on and is able to drop on a dime, right? And then he makes a great move to make this DB miss as well. That is a textbook move after you catch this stop route. We're going to talk about how he's able to execute that as well. So guys, when you're running a stutter go, what do? You stutter. You stop yourself. You kind of step hard. You change your pad level because you're trying to get this DB to stop his feet so we could get him on the fade route. Now, when Metcalf does that, most important thing is that we were trying to make it look like a stop and go or a stutter go. So on that go portion that you were trying to sell, we actually have to run. We got to run in full stride. We got to make this DB, especially because he's in zone coverage, feel our speed. We got to run hard. We got to put my head down. I got to run in full stride because that's what gets him to bail out of there. Now, something that Metcalf has struggled with in the past is being able to change direction while running full speed like this. But this is obviously a great example of him being able to stop right on a dime. So he pushes up vertical. He's running full speed. He's running hard. To be able to break, guys, especially as a bigger guy, this is so difficult. But this is a good break. You have to be violent with your hips. If you guys want to slow down while running full speed, you got to be aggressive here with that lower body. You almost want to think of it, I tell my receivers, like you're playing musical chairs. Music stops, what do? You sit in the chair, and you sit in the chair quickly. So you guys got to sit in the chair violently at the top of the break because that's how we slow down with that kind of speed. If you guys have that kind of speed going into the break, and this is what I hate so many younger receiver, or not younger, but old school receiver coaches teach this, run full speed, and then you want to beat the drum. Chop your hands and chop your feet. Good luck doing that quickly while you're running full speed. You're running full speed, you're attacking this DB. If you beat the drum, and I'm not saying don't move your hands either. A lot of people take that the wrong way. A lot of people say when I say don't beat the drum, a lot of people think like, oh, you're telling them not to move their hands. That's stupid. He's beating the drum right now. I'm not saying don't move your hands. You want to move your hands, but you want to trust your hips. The violent drop, not the chatter of your feet and the chatter of your hands, is going to make you slow down. You changing your pad level and changing your just like, I guess you could say center of gravity by sitting into the chair, getting to a 90-degree position with your lower body violently helps you slow down and helps you separate from the DB. The quicker you could stop, you could stop on a dime, that's what gets you separation. Now, this is something that I teach a lot of my wide receivers when we're working different hitch routes or working different, curl routes coming back to the ball. When you got a guy driving on you, if you give a quick little inside jab with a head and shoulder fake, that is a very, very easy way to make a guy miss, and you could get upfield to the outside. On a hitch route, curl route, I don't like you faking to the outside, then going inside, because this DB is taught to go right at that inside hip when you're this close to the sideline, right? So if we give him that jab inside, take the outside, that gets us a lot of space. So I recommend trying to work that, fellas. Anytime that you're working like a 5-yard hitch route, routes versus air, you're working curls, you don't have anybody around you, get used to throwing that cut because that's an instinctual thing that's built through reps. And if you guys can rep that out, it's going to be a big difference maker for you to get more yards after the catch. Great route there from Metcalf. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to train with us in 15 different cities this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below, coming all the way up from Las Vegas to Philly, Detroit, Boise, all over the country. So very first link in that description below, fellas. I'll see you guys next time.